This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, episode 48, For the Love of Ink, Tattoos and Body Piercing, with our guest today, Chris Walls.
My morals are basically just loving everybody and treating people good, and I'm not a perfect man by any means. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. I do the best I can to treat the people right, and I think that's how we built this business. It wasn't the good tattoos, it was how we treated the people that walked through the door.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Dustin Pierce, joined with my co-host, Tiara Harris. Real Change is a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news events and resources. And on our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and encourage a greater sense of pride in our community. We have a very, very fun episode today with Chris Walls. It was a good time.
Yes.
If you don't know Chris, he has a crazy story, which we're going to get into. Mm-hmm. Before we get started, Tiara, how are you doing today?
My phone hasn't been working for like 3 weeks.
Oh, man.
It's been really
It's hard for millennials like you, huh?
It's hard when your job relies on having a cell phone, both of them.
It is annoying when I can't text you.
Yeah. So I have a phone that I want to get, and hopefully I can get it soon. It's the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold. It's really cool. Look it
the
up.
Folding phones?
Yes.
Why do you want that for?
Because it looks so cool. And
it's like a Nintendo DS or something.
I could go through the whole specs of it. The camera's a lot better than the one before. I won't go into it. But
the marketing gotcha, didn't it?
It's cool. This isn't sponsored, but
isn't there a commercial about like the flip phone and how you get up on your high horse? It was like a kid in a dentist's office, and it's like, what's wrong with your dad? And he's like on a horse in the office.
Yeah.
And she's like, ever since he got this flip phone, it's up on his high horse now.
Yes, I've seen that.
It's going to be you.
So how was your life then?
It's going pretty good. We're doing some exterior construction on the office.
Yes, we are.
So South Street's going to get real sexy looking. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing some construction. The LT Land has a building too that they're doing some work on. So, and something else is happening. I signed up to be a mentor at the schools.
Oh.
So I'm mentoring an 8th grader, I suppose.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. It was a good meeting. So it was like 10 people that showed up that's going to do the program. It was led by Natalie Harmelin. You know who that is?
I think so.
Yeah. And Justin Goodman.
Okay.
So they did like a really good like introduction thing of everyone there. And it reminded me that during our Wilmington City public charter meeting that we had last week, where we invited Tip City to come over, I forgot to do intros to people. So no one in the audience knew who each other was until like halfway through when we did the workshop thing.
It's better that way, though.
Is it?
It's not awkward in the beginning stages. Like, hey,
I guess so.
I'm Tiara.
Sure. But anyways, Chris Walls on the podcast today. Mm-hmm. Super interesting story, ups and downs. What was the highlights for you, Tiara?
I never knew that he owned a thrift store. And he said that was before Goodwill. So just seeing how he was a business owner before the current business that he owns, and that it ties into his family's history.
Oh, yeah, because his like grandparents were both business owners too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard about someone in Wilmington who like petitioned city council or something during the rezoning a few years ago. I didn't connect the dots that it was him until we talked. And it was just so funny to get to know that person.
You know what I didn't realize before this podcast? I've been to school with 2 of his children.
Oh, really? And you're that old. Dude, that's crazy.
I know. I think I played volleyball with Emily.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah. Probably my favorite story that he tells is when he saw on social media that someone came out of the courthouse, because his business is right across from the courthouse.
Oh, yeah.
And I posted on social media, like, isn't it great to come out of our beautiful courthouse and see this, like, tattoo shop? Like,
yeah.
And he was able to reach out to that person and say, hey, man, you want to just, like, chat? And the person and him, I guess, came to terms or something. And the guy was like, hey, just had a bad day. And yeah, Chris showed him the shop and stuff, I think. So that was cool. And that they were able to reconcile that relationship.
Maturity, yeah.
Maturity, yeah. I think Chris seems like he's grown over the years. Sounds like from his story.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot.
And now we're going to let Chris talk a lot.
Yeah. It's going to be good, though. So definitely strap in. It's a roller coaster ride. So let's bring in Chris. All right, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we met with you last week, I think, to hear your story. So you have to tell it again.
That's fine. That's fine.
I wish we recorded it last time because it was so good, but
yeah. My brain tends to go all over the place sometimes, so I'm sure I skipped around.
So you're the owner of For the Love of Ink.
Yes.
And before we get started into like the business and stuff, we just kind of want to hear your story. So we usually have like leading questions to pull it out of you, but I think you're a good storyteller, so just take it away.
Right. Well, I lived quite the life. I worked at a roller skating rink from the time I was 11, 12 to the time I was 16. And I also traveled with the Carnival. I was 15 actually when I left the road with the Carnival and ended up coming back. I traveled around to Florida and the lower United States by myself. You know, I left home at a very early age. So.
And you're from Wilmington?
I am from Wilmington. I was born in Wilmington at CMH. My family owned businesses in town. My grandparents on my mother's side, and my mama and papa had a wrecking yard out in Lumberton for many years. And my dad's side, my grandfather was a local pastor. He was a Pentecostal pastor in Clarksville, you know, way back in the day. And then he was a meter reader for DP&L for 30 plus years in Wilmington. And they owned an antique shop out in Reeseville.
Okay. So we're just going to go linear then of your stories?
Yeah. I had a rough upbringing. You know, I was quite the wild kid. So, you know, I got locked up when I was 12 and, you know, went to juvie. That was tough. And then moved down here to Wilmington again to be with my dad. My dad had a lot of mental illness, so that didn't last. So I went back to Sidney, Ohio, where I grew up. My mom had moved us away when I was probably 10, I think. Around that time, I was in like 4 different schools that grade. Bowersville, Washington Courthouse. I think Courthouse was like Good Hope. I don't know if that's a thing, but it sounds familiar. And then I was in Huber Heights and ended up in Sidney. And Sidney is where I stayed until I left. You know, I think I was 23, 24 when I left Sidney.
So your parents were divorced?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
My parents were divorced when I was about 6 or 7.
Okay. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a sister and I have a stepbrother. And then I have many people that I call brother and sister.
Okay.
But as far as actual brothers and sisters, I have a stepbrother and a sister.
Okay.
My sister actually used to be the director of Hope House here in town. Pretty proud of her.
We have some connections with the Hope House that we'll talk about later down in your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So you got into some trouble.
Yeah.
Your mom moved to Sidney, Ohio. You got into more trouble there?
Well, actually, I didn't get in trouble until I got to Sidney. Sidney was the place where I did everything. I ended up getting locked up. Well, I'd been locked up a few times, but I left Sidney. My son was going to be born when I was 17, so I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And
at one part of your story, you were in the circus, right? Is that how you?
No, I was in the Carnival. Wasn't circus.
Carnival.
Yeah,
So sorry.
it was. I ran the Sky Wheel, the double Ferris wheel.
Okay.
And that was when I was 15. I wasn't there long. I traveled around Florida and stuff, Lake Worth, Lantana area, West Palm Beach.
How did you get out of
Sidney, Ohio?
Yeah, at such a young age.
So I had a lot of things happen to me when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I was basically just wanting to get away. And at 15, I had some girlfriend problems. I think we were a little more mature back then at that age. Or not. I don't know. But okay. So when I was a kid, I worked with Bailey Concessions, doing French fries and things like that. That was while I was working at the skating rink. During the summertime, we'd be shut down at the skating rink, sandy on the floor or whatnot. So I would go and work at the fair, doing the fry trailer, lemonade shake-up, things like that. So I met all those people with Fantastic Midways. I heard they were needing help, and they were in North Carolina. So this guy that was in the apartment complex that I was in, it was called Mystic Apartments in Sidney. It's the ghetto. We left there, and him and I hitched a ride to North Carolina to meet up with the Carnival, and then went on to Macon, Georgia, and then did a show there and did a show in Ocala and did a show in West Palm Beach and things like that. So
you weren't going to school? How did that work?
No, I dropped out of school. I was about 14 years old.
Okay.
I had a full-time work permit working at the skating rink, and I was the oldest kid in the 8th grade, so they ended up sending me to Upper Valley Joint Vocational Center, Upper Valley JVS, which was a trade school, kind of like our Laurel Oaks here.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me in occupational work experience, and that was basically for kids like me that didn't want to go to school.
Okay.
And I was technically in the 8th grade, and I ended up just dropping out. I just didn't go. Things were different back then.
I was going to ask. So like they give you a work permit and that's how you're able to work full time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in Florida. You're working the Carnival.
Yes. Fantastic Midways. They're not business anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then what happened from there?
I came back and I was doing bad stuff, and I ended up getting a girl pregnant, and my son came along, and right before he was born, we headed out west.
That's when you went to Phoenix?
That's when I went to Phoenix, yeah. I ended up...
So was she from there? Or what was it?
No, she wasn't from there. She had a grandmother out there. Her mom, myself, and her, and we had a dog named Coco. And her mom was pregnant at the same time she was. So I rode with 2 pregnant women in a car to Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. How was that experience there? What did you get involved with there?
You know, I learned a lot in Phoenix. I couldn't find a job. There was a local skating rink in Phoenix, but I'd already had a bunch of tattoos because I had met this old biker and he had taught me how to tattoo and given me tattoos. So 17 years old, I was already covered in tattoos, went to a local skating rink and the guy wanted to see me skate. So I skated and he was like, well, you can skate, and then made a comment about my tattoos and wouldn't hire me. So I found a job in a place called USDW Incorporated. I learned later it was U.S. Disadvantaged Workers, but, you know, back then they would teach us just to lie to people and tell them whatever fit the bill for the letters. But we sold 7-year light bulbs.
7-year light bulbs?
7-year light bulbs. Household cleaners, American flags, trash bags.
And you did this over the phone?
We did this over the phone.
Telemarketing.
And I had no idea that I could even talk to people. Like, I had no clue. I ended up finding this job. It's the only place that would hire me at my age. I was still 17 at the time. And holy cow, I was good at it. Like for the first time in my life, other than roller skating, I found something I was good at, talking to people. So I did it. And this company had recognized me and brought me in to sell their restaurant certificates. At 17 years old, I was running a phone room and then ended up doing the door-to-door sales. That was fun. And I walked onto a car lot, Camelback Mitsubishi in Phoenix, Arizona. It was owned by the Van Tuyl Corporation, which was later bought by Warren Buffett. The manager came out, caught me selling to his people, and I was young, 17. I had a few months before I turned 18. And he said, how many of my guys did you get? And I looked around, I was like, all of them. And he said, you want a job? So he hired me, gave me a base pay, hired me as a salesman on this car lot, selling new and used cars. They put me through school, which was called AIG, Automotive Investment Group, which was run by this old car salesman. He reminds me so much of Bill Marine. This guy could sell anything to anybody. And he taught us, we called it Mel University, even though it was called AIG, because of Mel Brickman being the guy that taught us. And I learned a lot. I couldn't sell cars legally because I wasn't 18 yet. So they put me through that school. And when I completed that, I was 18, jumped into car sales.
Like on the lot car sales?
On the lot, yeah. Bounced around from Camelback Mitsubishi to the Nissan to the Honda because the company that I worked for owned 5 dealerships right there in that little area on Camelback Road, which is now nothing but car dealerships there for miles. It's really crazy. You should look it up on Google Maps.
So I had a question about what makes a good telemarketer.
A good telemarketer?
I feel like this is like my perspective. I don't need your perspective on it because I feel like you kind of fit the bill of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I feel like I sometimes care too much what people think about me. I can do telemarketing, but it wears me out. Right. I just feel like some people who could care less, that are more like robotic about it, can do way better. And it can be personal, but like can just like pound that stuff out way better for longer periods of time. Like, what do you think? Like, I don't know. Like,
well, telemarketing, you have to be able to speak with confidence. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, you need to sound like you know what you're talking about. We did a promotion. My last telemarketing job that I had was a marketing director for a coast-to-coast resort. And I had to write the spiel. I had to write the script and everything. And basically, when people came to the mall and you see that car sitting there and it's got a little box in front of it that says enter to win, that was usually us. We called it the If the Key Fits Drive It promotion. So we would get these leads from these kiosks in the malls and wherever else we could put them. And we bought them. We bought these leads. Another company did the actual promotion. We bought the leads. We put together everything and hired a company to manage it. But we would call all these people, thousands of people that would enter to win this. It was a Trailblazer, I think, back then. We would call them and we'd say, hey, you'd filled out an entry form to win this Chevy Trailblazer. Just wanted to let you know that you are a finalist in our If the Key Fits Drive It promotion. And we would go into detail about, and then we'd come down to what I train my people to do is not to lie to them. I train them just to tell them, once we get that out of the way at the beginning, we tell them, hey, there is a catch to this. You do have to take a 90-minute tour of our resort when you visit to try your key. It was funny. But I taught my people, like my boss went crazy when he seen that I put in the script, here's the catch. He went crazy with it. I'm like, dude, just give it a chance and see if it works. And it did. We went from doing, 40 tours a week to 120 because we were not lying to people. They knew what they were getting when they come in. They knew that there was a catch to it. They had to take a tour. which in my opinion, sometimes it could hurt you a little bit more. Sometimes it was better.
Transparency.
Absolute transparency. Yeah.
Okay.
Telemarketing, it's
confidence.
You have to be confident in what you're doing and what you're selling, what you're talking about, even if you don't know exactly what it is. I used to train my telemarketers by telling them a story about a fellow that worked with me at the flea market in Phoenix. And I'm not going to go into the story because it's not podcast friendly.
Okay.
But I would go into this big story and tell them, and I'd even have a couple of them crying. Oh my God, that poor guy, And I'm like, yeah, that's total crap. But you believed me.
And he told them a story that wasn't true.
It was completely untrue. But that's how I would train my telemarketers. I would tell them bull crap stories, and then they would believe it. And pretty soon I couldn't do that anymore if I had a certain group for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Because they knew my stories and they knew that, this is probably not going to be true. But I could teach them that when you speak with confidence, no matter what it is, no matter how crazy the story is, they believed it. And I guess I was kind of a con man. When I became a criminal, when I got back from Phoenix, I couldn't find a job selling cars because I was so young. I was only 19, 20 years old. Mm-hmm. So I became a criminal. I couldn't use my abilities for sales because I wasn't smart. There's other people around that are smart in their mind. They could con people and do this and that. I mean, I was a con man to an extent. I can sell somebody, but my thing was I could become different people to do that. If I walked into a room of lawyers, I could sell them. If I walked into a room of this or that, I could sell them, bikers or whatever, because I was so good at talking to people.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the brains to figure out all that white collar crap. So what I would do when I couldn't find a job when I got back from Phoenix, I just started robbing. I just started being a burglar and a robber, and I just went down that path. And the alcohol, I had started very young drinking, so that got worse. I was in a bad marriage, and she was in on everything I did. And I got locked up and I got out of jail in 1999. And I had already separated from my wife at that time. And I made the conscious decision that I wasn't going back, that I wasn't ever going to look back. I was tired of hurting people.
Where were you at the time? In Wilmington?
No, at that time I was in Sydney. Got out of jail January 1999. My friend Jason Overby up in Sydney, Ohio, took me in and got me in church. That's where I met my wife. And it was an apostolic church, so it was very, very strict. I met her, and a month later we were together, and 25 years later, here we are.
Tell us the story. She was the pastor's daughter.
She was the pastor's stepdaughter, and his wife, her mother, was my new convert teacher. I went to a church here in Wilmington when I was young, the Wilmington Church of God, and my family was very involved in that church, still are. They all go there. But they had to teach me that women pastors were wrong, so they put me in this new convert class, which never worked, of course. If a woman can lay it down as good as a man, then who says we should stop her? So I never was converted, but I did meet my wife.
But you played the role so you can date your wife, right?
No, I didn't. No, because at that point, when I got out of jail, I knew I didn't want to be that guy anymore.
Yeah.
So I was done conning, I was done stealing, I was done doing all those things and hurting people. When I was convicted, it was a violent felony. So when I got out, I was like, this life's done. And I knew that. As soon as I walked through the doors of the church, I knew my life had changed. I knew it as soon as I crossed that threshold. And it did. It honestly did. When I met my wife, I seen her walking up to the pulpit, and she was wearing a brown dress. I remember everything. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, dude, that's the kind of chick I could spend the rest of my life with. And he was like, yeah, that's Pastor Herb's daughter. She's off limits. I was like, okay, bet. And I got her a month later. So I didn't have any money. She had a little saved. And so I mooched off her until I was able to get a job, and I bounced around from job to job and job. I hate factories. And then I started that marketing director job. We was homeless. We was living in a camper on the resort.
The marketing job was the job you described.
That was the job I was talking about.
Resort sales and stuff.
I was doing the sales first. And Amy and I was living on the resort in an old camper that an old man gave us. And we was living in that with no running water. And Amy was super pregnant. So even though I didn't con people, I didn't have to, even in this sales. And I think that what set me aside from the other salesmen selling resort memberships was I was completely transparent. And the only thing I did was I did set up some things. Like when I would take the tour through the clubhouse at the resort, I'd make sure Amy was in there reading a book with a big belly. Oh, this is my wife or my girlfriend at the time. And it helped me sell a lot of memberships. But it was the truth. It's not like I was lying to them. I just make sure she was there at the right time.
Yeah, I think it's smart.
Yeah. And then I started working for that company. They hired me to do their marketing over the phone, which is how we got the tours through the door and that promotion I told you about with the cars and the keys and all that. After I took over that office, they moved me to Dayton, Ohio, where I took over another office. And I ran that one.
So they had multiple telemarketing offices?
Yeah, they had two. They had one at the resort. They started one in Dayton. That failed. And they sent me in to fix it. And I did.
This was selling one resort, or they had multiple?
This was just that one resort.
Where was that at?
It was in Wapakoneta, Ohio. It was called Lakewood Village.
Okay.
And the only reason I got the job after I got out of jail, they had to talk to my probation officer and everything because I was on 5 years felony paper. And my probation officer had talked to him, this guy's not allowed around alcohol. He's not allowed to do this. He's not allowed near a bar, which is hilarious because my telemarketing office was in the back of a bar. But they had to clear all that through my probation officer. But the owner of the resort, and I have to give props to this guy, his name was Mark Wilson, and he owns Wilson National Real Estate in Hillsboro. When I went up and talked to him, I told him the honest to God truth, and he was like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Wilmington." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." And he's, "My office is in Hillsboro." And I was like, "Really?" So up in Sydney, Ohio, an hour and a half north of here, which actually an hour and 45 minutes because Wapakoneta is north of Sydney, I found a job for a guy that was actually from the area that I was born in. And so he immediately took a liking to me and took me in and seen my worth and put me to work.
I think I've seen that company. Do they do like auctions?
Yep.
Yeah,
Wilson
nice.
National Realty and Auctioneers, yeah.
I think I met some of them. They're pretty cool people.
They are good people. Mark took an interest in me when nobody else would. And he gave me a shot that nobody else gave me. And that's the only reason I'm here today.
So you moved to the Dayton area first, or you moved here?
We was living in Indian Lake at that time when I took over the Dayton office. And after about a year there or 2 years there, he wanted to move the office to Hillsboro. Thought it was a bad idea, but he wanted to do it. We had a way better pool of telemarketers in Dayton, given the bigger area. But I went with it. And at the same time, I had to keep the Dayton office running while I started up the Hillsboro office. So I talked Mark into hiring my sister-in-law to run the Dayton office. And she did a fabulous job. Man, she rocked it. I had a hard time competing with my Dayton office in Hillsboro because we would have little contests. But eventually we closed the Dayton office and started just doing Hillsboro. And we wanted to be closer to my family. The Woodgeards, I was super close to. I wasn't as close with the Walls family.
The Woodgeards are your wife's side?
Yeah, my mom's side.
Oh, your mom's side?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was close with them and I wanted to be closer to them. So I said, let's move to Wilmington. So we had a place set up. My uncle had a trailer on his property and we were going to move in there. And 1 week before we moved in the trailer, we had already sold a bunch of stuff, packed the U-Haul, ready to go. And my uncle's like, "Oh yeah, my boys are going to take that trailer." I was like, "Oh snap." So I called Butch Peel, and I hadn't talked to Butch since I was a kid, very, very small kid. And apparently something I said to him years ago stuck with him. And he remembered me. He was close to my mom. He was their school teacher. Butch was. I said, "I'm in this predicament. I know that I haven't talked to you, honestly, since I was like 6 or 7. And he said, "I got you." And he said, "There's keys in the office. I'll send you the address. Just pick them up." And he gave me 3 or 4 months free rent to get started.
What a guy.
Yeah.
He's a really good guy. I was telling you about that.
He helped me out a lot. We've had our differences over the years. But
Sure.
Butch is the one that always told me that when you start out, everybody's rooting for you until you get to the top. And then everybody wants to see you fail.
You're not a true leader until you're critiqued.
And it's absolutely
Anyways.
true. When I first started, my thrift shop, For the Love of Ink, man, the people, and they still are, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But there's a lot of folks that now are like, screw this guy.
Yeah.
That when I started, were like, let's help this guy. Let's do this. Let's cheer him on, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, I think I've been lucky in business because there's a lot of people that I see in business that people are really hammering them when they get to the top. I haven't had that as much as other people. So I think I'm very blessed in that.
Back to when you moved back to Wilmington.
So we moved back to
Butch
Wilmington.
Peel property.
Yeah, into Butch's property. I was over on Newham Street, widest street I've ever lived on in my life. I lived in the hood in Sydney, and this was like night and day. It was awesome. So the kids all went to East End. We ended up moving out of there and bought a house, our first home over on South Street. Wonderful home. Then,
how old were you at this time?
Oh my gosh, 24, 25.
Okay.
Something
So
like that.
very young.
I was young.
Yeah.
But when we moved to Wilmington and then we ended up buying our home, I had told Butch, I said, I feel like God's leading me to help people. After the life I lived, first 20 years hurting people, I want to help people. And I said, I think I want to open a thrift shop. I mean, one side of my family was a wrecking yard. The other side of my family was an antique store. I was screwed. It was in my blood. I had to do something. And helping people was the thing on the front of my mind. So I went to Butch and I said, I need a building. I need a place to sort. And he said, okay, do you have anything now? I said, nope. He said, do you have any money saved up? I said, nope. He said, but you think God's telling you to do this? I said, yep. And he said, all right. I have a building across from Father's Kitchen. And again, hooked me up till I could get going.
This is the building behind Dry
Eagles.
Cleaners.
Yes.
Between the Eagles and the dry cleaner.
Yeah.
On Lincoln Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I opened up there and we put in the paper. I had nothing. I didn't have one piece of clothing to sell except for what my wife was able to go through our closets. Nothing. But we put in the paper. We were opening a thrift shop. Before you knew it, I didn't have room to sort everything. I had to rent a warehouse. I mean, it was insane, the community support. We had a rule that if you came in and you needed clothing, that we would give you a pair of pants, 2 shirts, something like that. We would do it for free for kids and stuff. And
is this before Goodwill was in town?
Yep.
So you were like the only one at the time? Or
I was the only one.
Okay.
As far as I know, we were one of the first thrift stores in Wilmington, I
Okay.
think. I don't remember any before that. Other than the little mom and pops, like my grandma had a little antique store and she sold a lot of junk. She was kind of a hoarder. That's where I get it.
So how did that work out, thrift store?
You know, it did really well. We took donations, even though we were not a nonprofit. I made sure that people knew that, but people still donated to us. We were very inexpensive. We didn't make a lot of money. We did not make a lot of money at all, but it was so fulfilling. The people we met, I still have people that ended up coming to the tattoo shop or their kids coming here because they knew me from the thrift shop. Got to the point where people would dread me coming to their yard sales because I would just close them out. I would just be like, I'll give you 25 cents a piece for everything. If you close it up right now, we'll load it up. And they took it.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty awesome. Buying and selling stuff was definitely my calling, more so than anything.
So why did you stop doing that?
DHL left, and I had rented a building off of a guy here in town, and he loved his money. He came to me and told me his name and said, here's my card. If you need anything, I love what you're doing here. I rented the old Gumley building beside the B&B, the old B&B. Turned that thing into a huge thrift store because I thought bigger was better. And this guy, he came across super nice, gave me his card, like I said if you need anything, call me. And then we had a local fire inspector. I won't mention that name either. They're no longer at the fire department, but they had started giving me a pretty hard time about my clothing pile. And honestly, looking back, it was probably legit things that was my fault that at the time I got salty about, and they were probably just doing their job. But I called the owner of the building and I said, hey, the fire inspector's giving me problems. He was like, no problem. He said, I'll take care. He tried to take care of it, but I'm guessing he just made somebody mad. The person came back the next day, and I've got a smart mouth. So they're like, I don't see any hand soap in the bathrooms or antibacterial hand soap. I'm like, I didn't see a health inspector. That's funny. And that was it. That's all it took. And then they started hitting me on stairs on the side of the building and this and that. And so I called him again, and I called him twice. That was it. That's the only 2 times I called him. He said, if I ever need anything, to call him. So I did. And he said, you're the biggest pain in the butt that I have. He didn't use those words. His words were much nastier. I have $90,000 a month in rental property income. I have $200 million a year business, and I don't have time for your BS. And I was like, this dude really just talked to me like that. And he threw me out. I was behind in rent, so I'm not going to say that that wasn't part of it, but I never got an eviction notice before he tried to steal all of my stuff and put it in a trailer behind my building. The police made him give it back, but...
So that's the story, is that you got kicked out of there, and then what happened after that?
I moved back to my little building.
Okay.
And by that time, DHL had happened, and people were scared to even spend money in a thrift shop. Our town was terrified.
Yeah.
And I just closed it, started doing whatever I could to make money. Teamed up with a friend, opened an auction house, sold hot dogs on the sidewalk of the auction house to make money there and support my family. Just any legal way that I could support my family, I would do. We opened a candle business. My wife and I started making candles in our basement.
What was your candle business called?
Yeah, it was something cool.
It was Nifgood.
Okay.
So
what was it called?
It was called Nifgood because a friend of mine, his name was David, but we called him Shorty. He actually lived in my thrift shop. I can say that now because I don't have that anymore. Yeah, that was the thing that hammered me on, was him staying there. But anyways, he came in the thrift shop one day, and this was years before the first time on Mulberry Street. And he picked up camp. We said, man, that Nif good. And for some reason, it popped in my head all those years later when we started the candle thing. We'll just call it Nif Good Candles. And I think the Facebook page is still up. Pretty sure.
There was an article in the paper as well, right?
Yes, there was. A local couple making candles in their basement or something like that. Yeah, I'm looking now to see if it's still there. But yeah, it was Nifgood, and then we changed it to Walls Candle. Yeah, it's still on Facebook.
There.
Nice.
Yeah, if you want to see something really funny, I had my friend Kara that I went to junior high with making descriptions for the candles.
Yeah.
Go to that page and look up the description for the love smell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. It was hilarious. I read it and just lost it. It was funny. But anyways.
So we're at the part where you're back on Lincoln Street for your thrift store. It didn't work out. Even then you were selling hot dogs and
yeah, we closed and did all that.
That was around, was it 2010?
Yeah, 08, 09.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right when DHL left.
Yeah.
And then was your next thing the tattoo shop?
No, I have a lot of ideas go through my head all the time. And that's why I bounce around on stories, because my mind's just going constantly. Apparently it's a problem. I should be medicated.
Okay.
But I think that would hinder what I'm doing.
It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I started a little flea market out in Antioch because we had moved to a house out there, the Butch had, and I rented a building and started a little flea market where I had people come and set up. It was cute.
Wait, so you operated the flea
I started a little flea market.
Antioch,
Yes.
you mean like past Walmart?
Yeah.
What's out in Antioch?
Nothing.
Like a couple of houses? That's
Nothing.
it?
Nothing is there.
Okay.
We even had to have our
Gray market.
Oh, it was the dumbest idea I've ever had,
Okay.
but it was fun, and I met some really good people there. I had a little concession trailer that some folks bought me, and we put that there, and we tried doing some auctions there. We tried doing this and that. Nothing I could do in Antioch was going to work, but it was fun. And then one day in February, I think of 09 or 10, I don't remember, my son was playing with a lighter and burned our house down. He was 5. And I had already quit smoking, but apparently there was a lighter that fell in the couch or something back when I did smoke. And he burned our house down. We lost everything. Some nice folks rented us a property over on Wall Street, North Wall. And then we lived there for 4 years until we bought our current home.
Is Wall Street named after your family?
It is not.
Okay.
If it was, it'd be Walls.
It's true.
But no, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything named after my family.
Okay.
You can change that in the future with all
Maybe.
influence.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of influence, I don't think. I used to, but I don't anymore. At least I don't want to.
Tattoo the S on Wall Street.
Don't do that. Anybody's listening, don't vandalize the
They're going to do it in your honor.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thanks. So, okay, so you're on Wall Street, your house burnt down. What were you doing at that time?
We were on Antioch when the house burned down, then we moved to Wall Street.
Right.
So at that time, I was tattooing a little bit on the side, just friends and family. I really wasn't charging anything. People would tip me because I was an artist when I was a kid, but I never really went anywhere.
This is when you were at Wall Street, or
When
did
I was-
you start before that? The other houses in time, just in the background, or did you just start tattooing?
I started a little bit at the thrift shop because a girl came in and had a really bad tattoo.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, I could do that. So I fixed it. And a friend of mine was a tattoo artist, Sean, and he hooked me up with some supplies and I took care of her. And I was just like, yeah, I'll just keep doing this. And I just did it on the side, not much. Before I opened the tattoo shop, 50 or 100 tattoos. But I was always an artist. I really did a lot into skin depth and things like that. I did not start out the way you should. I didn't do an apprenticeship, anything like that, because at my age at the time, I was 30-something. Nobody would take me seriously. Like, I ran into a guy that owned a tattoo shop here in town at the gas station when I was tattooing in my garage on Wall Street. And I said, hey, you own that tattoo shop down there? And he was like, yeah. He's like, you want to get some work? I said, man, be honest, I'm a tattoo artist myself. And he kind of rolled his eyes. I said, what kind of machine do you use? And he said, none of your effing business. And walked out.
Nice.
I'm like, what a mean guy. That should have been my first inclination of how this industry is. Super cutthroat and people are always mean to each other.
What was the quote that you had about how you don't understand why it's such a cutthroat industry because there's so much?
There's so much skin.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much of your body you got covered. There's always something you can do.
Yeah.
And nowadays you can go over, you can do blackout sleeves, you can do all this stuff if you want more. But this guy was a douchebag, man. He totally wouldn't talk to me. And now I wouldn't do it this way. So I don't want anybody listening to think that I'm that guy. But I went ahead and opened a tattoo shop about 4 doors up from him. So
Show him.
and we're still here. But yeah, he was really mean and caused us a lot of problems when we first started. One of my artists, the main artist that we have here, Trent Vickers, Trent's the one that pretty much my first 3 years in the tattoo business was learning from Trent because he was way better than me, so I just watched everything he did and he gave me pointers and he showed me things. And that's how I've become kind of the tattoo artist that I am, is because of him. But Trent wasn't even going to work for us full time until the other tattoo shop started really messing with us, put stickers on our windows and just acting a fool. Trent's like, yeah, I'll come full time.
Was he working with the other person, or
He wasn't.
he was like in retirement, right,
He
or
was
something?
pretty much. Yeah, he
Done with
wasn't.
tattooing.
Yeah, he actually had it set up at his house and was taking care of his personal clients there. So he didn't need to come with me. But when he seen, we were the underdog, and I'd never seen the inside of a tattoo shop in my entire life until I opened my own doors.
So your first tattoo shop was on Mulberry Street, right?
Yep.
And it was in the building that the Book Nook is in right now?
It's in the building that State Farm is in.
Oh, State Farm. So same building, I think.
Yeah, we rented both sides.
Okay.
We wasn't going to rent both sides, but the landlord, rest his soul, he wasn't the brightest bulb on the tree. He was really good at selling furniture.
Brightest bulb on the tree.
Yeah. He, listen, this fella, he came to me. I got wind from somebody that the landlord was talking to a guy at the flea market about opening an adult novelty bookstore next to my tattoo shop. And I have worked since day one of opening this business. I want to get rid of the negative stereotypes of what we are. That's why, we allow kids here. We don't tattoo kids, but we allow kids here. We allow people to bring their families. We want this to be a family thing. I get a lot of crap from other shops, or I did, because they say tattoo shops aren't for kids. I say, what are you doing in your tattoo shop to make it not for kids?
Yeah.
We are absolutely a family business. My kids have all been raised here. They've all grew up here. And so is the guys that work here. They're kids too, for 12 years. But he was going to do that. And I went to him and I said, what is this I hear about you moving an adult bookstore next to my shop? And he says, well, I didn't think it would be a big deal, tattoos. And I lost my stuff. I was so mad. I said, listen, dude, I will sue you. I said, I will own this building, which I probably had no grounds at all.
I was going to ask how that would work.
It would not have worked. It absolutely would not have worked. I would have looked like a fool.
Just blowing smoke. Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
But I was trying my best to threaten him. So I said, you know what? Screw it. The tattoo shop was doing well its first year. So I just rented that side too and did nothing with it.
Okay.
But it kept that guy out. And I think we was going to start like a gift shop for the tattoo shop. That was another idea I had that never panned out. I was going to sell candles in there. That didn't pan out. Yeah. Come to find out, when you open a tattoo shop, you don't have time for anything else.
Okay.
And then to this day, you can ask my wife. She gets so mad at me. I have ideas pop in my head every day. We could do this. We could do this. We could do this. And I just have to shut it down.
What's your wife's temperament? Does she have a job too? Or is
My wife's temperament? My wife is way smarter than me.
Nice.
Way smarter. She's book smart. I grew up
street smart.
I say all the time, I have friends that yell at me for saying it. I'm just not a smart guy. I'm good with business as far as the people. And I can talk to the people and I love the people. It's the only reason I'm still here. My passion for the people make me better at what I do. My wife is not, I'm not going to say she's not a people person. She's very pleasant. She's a best mother that you could ever want. I mean, this woman is superwoman. I wish she could get nominated for one of those women things, because she took in my kids that I had previous to her. She raised our kids, my kids, and we was able to adopt a couple kids and their brother. And she is just the perfect woman. Everybody's like, man, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't. She does. She's perfect. If it wasn't for her, I'd be back in prison or back in jail, 100%. Because the life I lived before her was horrible. She's actually going to be starting work here in the shop.
As a what?
Front desk.
Okay.
Like I said, she's pleasant. She's just not super outgoing. She's been done wrong in her life too.
Yeah. But she'll be good at managing the books and stuff.
That's what she does.
Yeah.
She does all the books.
Yeah.
She does all the guys' 1099. She does all the tax stuff for the shop. She's got a degree in accounting.
Okay.
Like I said, she's super smart. And we kind of fit that way. I can talk to the people and she can do all the hard stuff.
I feel like relationships are good when you're not stepping on each other's toes. You're both working your own.
Oh, I step all over her toes.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. She doesn't step on
mine.
No, she doesn't step on mine. My wife has supported me in every stupid decision I've ever made. When my dad died and I left that funeral home and drove by that empty building that was a tattoo shop, I didn't even talk to her, which I should have. Husbands, if you're listening, talk to your wives about things. Don't do what I do. But I called the guy on the window, rented the building, and spent every dime of her financial aid check, because that's all the money we had, was she was getting financial aid for college.
This isn't the Mulberry building, is it?
That was the Mulberry building.
Oh, this is that. Okay, okay.
And the guy gave us a couple months free rent to get it going because the building was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
That place was horrible. I don't even know how it was a tattoo shop before us. I don't even know how we had it at a tattoo shop. Office wall dividers, like those things that are so tall that you can put up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They hide a lot of stuff. We even had a dirt floor in the back of that place.
It's a nice building now.
Oh, it's gorgeous. The guy that bought the building, John,
Uh-huh.
my Lord, he put so much into that building.
Yeah.
And it is beautiful.
Both State Farm and the Book Nook are pretty nice spaces, it seems like.
Yeah, I haven't been in the Book Nook part of it. That was really rough when we was there. But the State Farm part, I spent 4 years there. And what he did to it, I walked in there because that's our insurance, the State Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. I can't believe it. I would have never had that vision that he had to do that.
Okay, so moving along the story,
Mhm.
you were there for a while, and then you got a different shop at some point, right?
Yeah.
Is this the part of the whole zoning? And
Yeah. That's where the God.
Please discuss this, because this is where our stories kind of intersect a little bit.
That was the God Hates Tattoo People Club.
Nice.
I'm not going to say their names because I want to respect your podcast. There was 4 main people, a husband and wife, and another guy that told me that I was going to hell. And then there was this crazy lady that lived by the creek. They were really on us. Like, they were going to the neighbors and telling the neighbors I was a drug dealer. And when I went to the couple's house, I went to all these people to introduce myself before we moved into there. We bought the building. My brother-in-law had bought the building for us.
So this is the building that the Hope House used to be in.
Yes.
On the corner of Wood and Locust.
Yes.
Across from
It's a
Domino's
residence
Pizza.
now.
It's a yellow
Yes.
building.
And Domino's was across the street.
Okay.
Vacuum shop on the corner, diagonal. Swindlers on the corner, diagonal. Domino's had no issue with us being there.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the vacuum shop had no problem with us being there either. I talked to the manager of Domino's. I talked to all the neighbors. But when I got to those people, the people up the street, the guy said, my wife is concerned about the bad element you will bring to our neighborhood. And it just shocked me, took me back. And I said, well, I can promise you that we won't bring a bad element. We're good people. We're families. This is just something that we love to do. We're not trying to hurt anybody. As a matter of fact, you'll probably be safer with us around. Of course, they wasn't buying it. They went to city council. They made a big stink. One lady, the crazy lady from the creek, said, we don't want people like that next door to us. And Randy Riley, who was the mayor at the time, I could see him getting mad when she was saying it, like his face turned beet red. And he looked down and he said, this is disgusting. He said, if this was a barbershop or a massage parlor or salon, we wouldn't even be sitting here discussing this. So everybody was on our side. City council was great, but everybody was on our side. And we had record numbers of council meetings. They even put that in the paper that it was record numbers.
Of like public forums?
At the actual physical council meeting.
You had record number of people attend these meetings to watch this happen.
Yeah. Actually, every once in a while, I'll go back and read the minutes from that meeting because a lot of really good people that don't even come here to get tattooed, got up and spoke on our behalf. It was amazing. Gets me a little choked up now, but.
Did you live on that street at the time?
Yeah, I lived 3 doors up from the crazy lady. She had no idea. It was hilarious when I brought that up at a council meeting. I looked at her and whispered thank you when she mentioned that she didn't want people like us next to her because I seen Randy Riley's face. So I was like, this is going to get so good. And I whispered thank you to her. And then I said, by the way, I'm your neighbor. I live 3 doors up.
So before I met you last week for the first time, it's funny because I was talking to Taylor Stuckard a few weeks ago, and he mentioned something about like how things happen in the city or whatever. And he mentioned this exact story about city council and things. And he said something about how it was like going to be approved or something. And then you put up a bunch of yard signs and I got everyone riled up even more.
So there was a thing called the G2 zoning, the G2 gateway. I think that's what it was. G2 or G3. I don't remember, which it ended up happening years later, but that would have made that property. It was already zoned professional office, but it would have made that property zoned commercial residential, which we could have been in. But because of me and my big mouth and my, I don't know how to say it, I put up a bunch of signs in the yard. Stop discrimination, support for the love of ink.
Okay.
You know, like 8 signs all across the yard. There's pictures of it online. You can find them now.
Okay.
There was even a petition on change.org for us. And we had thousands of signatures. And these people, the evil people, God Hates Tattoo People Club, they went around and got signatures. There was a lady that worked at the city office. Her mother called me and said, you know, they're at McDonald's with a petition to keep you out of the neighborhood. So.
Very passionate.
Well, they were super passionate, and I respect that. They were just bad people, like they were evil. So I went up there to McDonald's. I put on long sleeves, went up to McDonald's, walked up to the guy and said, hey, man, is that paper to keep them nasty people out of your neighborhood? And he said, yeah. He's like, you want to sign it? I said, give it here. So I didn't lie to him. So I took it out of his hands. I ripped it up and I got him kicked out of McDonald's. I'm lucky I didn't get arrested because looking back, that, you know, I probably shouldn't have taken the property, but
sure,
you know, it was horrible. And honestly, and this is how I believe God works.
Okay.
If I would have gotten in that building,
mm-hmm.
and we would have set up shop there,
mm-hmm.
I'd have been out of business in 6 months.
Because of parking?
Parking, there was no parking, which was one of the things that the people were concerned about, other than the bad tattoo people.
Yeah, and there's not much parking there. I live next door, and there's
not
parking.
No. Actually, yeah, the house you live in was one of the guys that caused us the main problems. Yeah.
Nice.
I would have never lasted. We would have never made it. And I believe that even though I'm so angry with those people, God says turn the other cheek. I have a hard time doing that with them. So I'm just going to keep them on my hate list for a while. I'll probably forgive them on my deathbed. We'll see. But
wow.
Looking back, man, it was such a blessing that it didn't happen. So when the Hope House, my sister came to me because she was working at the Hope House at the time.
Which was where?
It was over in the old church on Walnut. It used to be Church of God. They were in there. Well, they was having issues. They couldn't stay there. So my sister came to me, and we still had one council meeting to go, and people were gearing up, man. It was going to be a good one. But I was like, I believe when you're being spoken to and it's nobody around you that's talking, you got to sometimes listen. So I met the director at the time, Tammy, and I just said, you know what? I just handed her the keys. So you can have it. And my sister and her husband owned the building because they bought it for us. They went along with it, didn't charge them rent. I can be a vindictive guy. I'm human. I'm no different than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got my digs in at the neighbor. At the same time, I was able to help the Hope House. So it was a win-win for me. It was a win-win for the Hope House.
Yeah.
It was a lose-lose for the neighbors.
Last time we spoke.
I'm human, man.
No, yeah, for sure. I think it's hilarious. So your cousin lives there now?
Yeah.
You didn't know that was even your cousin?
I didn't even know he was my cousin. I knew that his dad was my cousin, but I didn't know his dad had kids because it was on the wall side.
Yeah.
And I wasn't real close growing up with the wall side.
Okay.
Maybe when I was real little, I just didn't know. I knew that Joe was my cousin. And Trent one day in the tattoo shop was like, so you know Chad? I was like, no, who's Chad? And he was like, well, it's his son. I was like, oh my God, I have a cousin. It's a distant cousin, but we're cousins and, blood related. So we met up in the tattoo shop, and it was crazy because we looked so much alike. But yeah, we've been super close ever since. He actually runs a restaurant in Blanchester called Broadway Bar and Grill. So
check him out.
For anybody that knows, I scooted closer to the mic for that.
Okay, so this is a crazy story. So you didn't get that building.
Nope.
The Hope House moved in. And then how much time after that did you find the next
So
building?
we were on a crunch because the owner of our current building on Mulberry was selling.
Okay.
And I held on as long as I could for this Wood Street property. So what happened was I was approached by some wonderful people downtown, the Hollies and Taylor Stuckert. His wife managed the property that her mother owns downtown, and it was on Main Street, 55 West Main. It was where the print shop is now. I believe they're still there. But yeah, she said, we're going to hold this for you until after your next council meeting. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, they were so awesome. And, they worked with us so much, and they were just wonderful people. It was the best rental experience I've ever had in my life. Like, these people were great. But we didn't have to have them hold it for us because I had already let the Hope House have that building. So we just started making the move. We didn't have any money again. It's been up and down. We didn't really become successful until Main Street, until we were there a while. That was a big blessing. There was parking all over downtown. It was a great location. There was a beauty salon next to us when we opened up, and they didn't like us being there, but I think I won them over.
So you were in the building where Uptown Printing is?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
We were there for 3 years. And before we got the Hope House building on Wood Street, before my brother-in-law bought that, we tried to get this building that we're in now. But it was tied up in court over a dispute with the auction company because it sold so cheap.
Okay.
Bill Marine owned it. And I offered him cash before we bought that, and he wouldn't take it. It was too low. And then finally, 3 years later, I had a vape shop up the street, and I wanted to combine everything, which we don't have a vape shop now, but came back to this building and begged when I found out that somebody had stolen all the heat and air off the roof.
Yeah. This is a funny story. So you mentioned that this building was vacant for a while.
It was vacant.
And someone just
years.
parked behind the building, broad daylight,
and
stole all the HVAC on top of the roof.
Oh yeah. Some people that work at the courthouse had told me they had seen them doing it.
Yeah.
They thought it was just workers. You can't blame them,
Yeah.
They thought it was just workers. These guys are professional. They went up there and just stole all the copper out of 6 units on the roof, did like $60,000 worth of damage.
Nice.
So I went back to the guy, and he told me, he said, do you really want that building, don't you? And I said, yes, sir. It was Bill Marine. He said, it doesn't have heat or air, which now my wife's going to listen to this broadcast and know. So you don't have to edit it out. I'm sure that she's got an idea, but I did know that there was no heat or air on the building. I told her otherwise. Don't do that, guys. Be honest with your wife. But I did go ahead and bought it. I couldn't afford to buy it outright because we had no money at that point, as far as that kind of money. We were doing well, but I didn't have the kind of money it took to buy this building or to fix it up. And by the grace of God, Bill Marine's a good man, and I talked him into letting me do a 5-year land contract.
Mm-hmm.
So we was able to pay it off pretty quick, and we was able to get the work done thanks to my friends. You know, my friend Marty did the floors. My friend Christian did the electric. We had all these people that came in and helped paint. Guy named Kevin painted in here. And, you know, my friend Luke does the maintenance on the building now through his company. And we was, by the grace of God, with the help from friends, like a Joe Cocker song, we had a little help from our friends. And that's how we got here. I didn't do it by myself. That's for darn sure. The first 5 years we were in business, I worked my butt off. And then I got lazy because I figured out we could have other people do it. But they are all my friends and they do a wonderful job, and I can't take the success by myself. They helped me get here for sure.
I feel like we've gone so far into this story.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories there.
Yeah. So that's a lot of the story. I don't know if we covered this already, but you said you started getting a tattooing with some bikers, right?
Yeah.
That was your first tattooing experience, and when you learned kind of the ropes of tattooing.
Yeah. When I was a kid, while I was working at the skating rink, I was going through a lot of things. So I was hanging out on the street a lot, and a buddy of mine, John, said, "Hey man, you want to get a tattoo? I know this guy." I was like 13 years old. I was like, "Yeah." And it was a guy named Bear, and he was a 1% biker from a club I won't mention. That was a very big motorcycle club.
What's a 1% bike?
It's an outlaw motorcycle club.
Okay.
But it wasn't the Outlaws. So
Gotcha.
It was an outlaw club. And this old man took a liking to me. He was a big guy. His name was Barry, weighed about 500 pounds, big beard, long hair, tattoos everywhere. He gave me my first tattoo in the basement of a guy named Cheeseburger's house. Everybody I hung out with back then had nicknames. I hung out with a lot of guys.
What was your nickname?
Little Bear. I have a vest that used to belong to him, and that's what's on it is Little Bear. But he took me in, and while I was still living with the fella at the skating rink, I would just stay gone for weeks at a time because I needed to get away. And he would take me in. I ended up, when I was 16, in between when I met my son's mom, I was staying with him. That was an experience. I've seen a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have seen at that age. But I wouldn't take it back. He was one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life.
So what was your first tattoo then?
I still have it. I'll show you.
I would hope you still have it.
Yeah, I still have it. Well, I mean, guitar string, tape deck motor, train transformer, and Higgins Indian ink. But yeah, it's right there. It said FTW on the top, but you can't see that now. And it was supposed to be the world with a claw over it.
Okay.
I didn't choose it. I didn't choose any of my tattoos when I was a kid. It was whatever he felt like doing. He ended up passing away in 97, right before I went to jail. He had gangrene in his leg. Yeah.
So what's your favorite tattoo?
Can I add to this?
Sure.
Can we have two separate things? What's your favorite tattoo and what's the most meaningful?
My favorite is probably one that I've got across my back that done by Tattoos by Stephanie Stewart. I got close to Mike on that one too. So she put Trust No One across my back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably my favorite. And then I think my most meaningful one, I have two. One of them is Black Eyed Peas Wears a Love Symbol from their video,
Mm-hmm.
Anti-discrimination, anti-hate. My most meaningful is the one on my hand that says $2.43. That's how much money was in my dad's pocket when he passed away. So that's just a reminder that I got to take care of my kids when I'm gone. And then I have For the Love of Ink on my right hand with For the Love of Ink swallow. And that's to remind myself how I'm going to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why a swallow?
They always find their way home, you know, just like with sparrows. It was actually supposed to be a sparrow. And then later on, somebody's like, "Hey, Chris, you know, that's a swallow." I told you I was smart. I should have asked my wife.
I always wondered that.
I mean, to be honest, Lakewood Village Resort, Mark Wilson, years ago, changed my life, but that got us on the path. But For the Love of Ink and the people here and the clients here changed my life. If it wasn't for the clients, there would be nothing. We wouldn't have anything. I'm super, super big on the clients.
One of the standard questions we ask is just what's an accomplishment that your pride your organization has brought the community. But I think I want to ask a question about, you had someone one time walk out of the courthouse and make a comment about like, "Oh, isn't it great to walk out of this beautiful courthouse?"
Yeah, I'm not going to say that guy's name.
Sure.
He's a awesome guy.
Yeah.
He was having a bad day. I'll tell you the story.
Sure.
About 8 people sent me messages that morning of a screenshot of this guy's post. And what it said was, "Isn't it classy to walk out of our beautiful historic courthouse to see the word tattoo seared into your brain?" So I just messaged him. And I think this guy thought I was going to off him or something. It was hilarious. He was such a sweet guy. He was like, "Listen, man," he's like, "I'm really sorry. I had a bad day." And I'm like, "Dude, that's cool. Let's do lunch." And this guy met me for lunch at Jen's Deli. We went over and we ate. We
He was
fellowshiped.
never seen again, right?
No. No, he's still around. He's still around. And I brought him back to the building And I took him through the building, and it was an amazing experience. You know, rather than be the guy that I used to be, I ended up breaking bread, and I took him for a tour of the shop, showed him what we were doing, and it was amazing. And he was a super, super nice guy, and like to think we're still friends to this day.
I think that's a good testament of both your characters. Like you're willing to like respond to that, and then him willing to like humble himself to.
He was awesome. I was shocked that he even met me.
Sure.
But he was an awesome guy. And I haven't talked to him recently, but if he hears this podcast, know that I love him.
I usually ask, like, what's a stigma or rumor that you've heard about yourself online in the community that isn't true that made you laugh? Probably a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the drug dealer thing.
Okay.
You know, the God Hates Tattoo People Club down there with the old building, when they was going around to the neighbors, they were telling them that I dealt heroin and I was a drug dealer. And I'm not going to lie, I have been that in the past, 25, 30 years ago, but I'm not that guy. So I thought that was laughable, because here I am, the guy that had the thrift shop, and the guy that, was out in the community doing a lot of things, which I can't say that because, yeah, there's a lot of drug dealers that do good things.
Sure.
I'm just not a drug dealer. I just prefer to do good things.
Yeah.
But that rumor went around, and I thought it was funny, but that's not me.
So when you were like super Christian in the beginning, there were certain tattoos that you just wouldn't do.
Oh man, I was such a self-righteous prick. People would come in, like girls would get nose rings, and I'd be like, yeah, might as well throw on some Daisy Dukes and move into a trailer park. Yeah. And my guy, Eric, my shop manager, Eric here, he's also our piercer, and he used to yell at me. He's like, you can't say that to people, and people would come in and they'd want a pagan symbol or, something with witchcraft or something like that. And I'd be like, absolutely not in my shop. And owning this business and being around the people, I've met so many wonderful people from different religions, different beliefs than myself. And I realized it's not my place to just say, you can't do this. It's their body. It's their choice. I can't tell them what they can and can't get just based off my own personal beliefs. It's selfish and wrong. I feel so strongly that it's not my place to judge other people, because I could be wrong. And I realize that now. It took me years to realize that. I was so believed in the Pentecostal and the apostolic beliefs that I thought that everybody else was wrong and I was right, and this is the only way to heaven. And I realized that, hey, I could be wrong. If there's a certain class of people that are going to go to hell because of the way they live their lifestyle, I know a lot of those people. They're awesome people, and I think that's a problem that we have now with society, is there's so much hate and division. I had to start running my shop a different way. I personally myself won't do any anti-religious tattoos. That's me personally, but that's just because of me. But if somebody else here wants to do it, I do not hold them back. I do not tell them no. I don't put in my comments. It's not my place. It's not my business. We won't allow any hate tattoos. Anything to do with hate, we won't allow that. That's why we've always done the cover-ups and stuff for people when they have that stuff. But we don't dabble in that. If you come in here and want a white power tattoo, just walk right back out. We're not going to be pleasant.
You're for love and not hate.
We are for love, yes. We had come up with that because somebody had said, for the love of God. And when we was thinking about a name, it popped in my head, kind of like the Nifgood thing, And I didn't know there was another shop called that until a few years later. There's a shop in Canada, but unfortunately that fella had passed away, and that's not a thing. But yeah, I thought we were original. Should ask my wife.
We can edit this out if you don't want to talk about it.
You're fine.
You mentioned like you're no longer part of a church currently.
Right.
But you do have some like pretty strong moral values and beliefs, it seems like.
Yeah.
So was there a specific event that led to that shift?
No, man, life. I think life led me to it. The people that I've met here in the tattoo shop. I've met so many good people that don't believe how I believe. There's a lady here in town. I'm not going to say her name, but she actually owns a local bar here in town. And her and I have different beliefs on almost everything, except that we love each other. And she's wonderful. You take all the things. I'm not going to get into my personal beliefs about politics, but her and I are on separate ends of the field with that. But I don't care. And she don't care. We've gotten our little spats on Facebook, and it always ends with, I love you, but she's awesome. I don't care what other people believe. We can still get along and love each other regardless. That's the way it used to be. Or we can fight, but apparently that's not appropriate anymore either. There wasn't anything that made me change my beliefs other than the people that I've met after I opened For the Love of Ink. It's been such a wonderful experience meeting all the people. They say that good things come to an end, but I hope that when I'm gone, whoever is taking this over, I hope that it doesn't close, and I hope that whoever takes it over will do exactly what I've done with the people.
I'd never been into a tattoo shop really before touring this place. It's very nice.
This isn't a good example. Since I opened For the Love of Ink, I have traveled to other shops, and there's a lot of really good shops. There's a lot of really good tattoo artists around. We're not the best. I know that you have people that are out there egotistical that say what they do is better than everybody else and blah, blah, blah. We are not those people. If you want to get a great tattoo and you don't want to come to us, I can recommend 10 different shops from around here. I'm willing to list them if you like, but I can.
Plenty of skin, right, Tia?
There's plenty of skin. There's plenty of skin. Absolutely. There's plenty of shops around here in the local area. There's great shops. We're not the only one. I encourage people, if you're out and about and you see a shop and you want to get a tattoo, do it. It doesn't have to be here.
But there's a reason why people come to this shop.
There is a reason. When I started this, we didn't build it by doing great tattoos because I suck. I admit that. I wasn't very good. Thanks to Trent and the guys that we've hired here, I've gotten better. I've got one guy, Aaron Acevedo. He likes to just grab Sharpies and draw on the skin, and it's amazing. People love it. We've got a couple girls that work here that's awesome for the younger ladies. If I have a girl come in and, 16, 17 years old and she's getting something on her back or a collarbone, I feel more comfortable with the female doing that. We don't allow anybody to get tattooed under 16 years of age. It's not a state law. That's our thing. And in the state of Ohio, anybody can get tattooed at any age as long as they have parental consent. I think it's BS. I think those laws should change. We won't tattoo under 16, and 16 and 17, we won't tattoo below mid-sleeve. So nothing on forearm or anything like that. We won't do that. We won't do anywhere visible. We won't do any private areas of anyone underage. I think I don't even really need to say that. If anybody does that, they're stupid as far as other artists. But my morals are basically just loving everybody and treating people good. And I'm not a perfect man by any means. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. I do the best I can to treat the people right. And I think that's how we built this business. It wasn't the good tattoos. It was how we treated the people that walked through the door. My pawpaw treated the customers at his wrecking yard, him and his brothers, they treated them great. It's good old boys. You walk in there and it's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, and that's what I wanted this. I didn't want for the Love of Ink to be a place. I wanted it to be more of an event, more of a happening, like this roller skating rink was for me.
Because you have people come in here and just hang out, right?
Yeah.
We also have people come from out of state, you said.
Yes. We tattoo some people, some famous people. We don't say their names, but yeah. Actually, there's one guy that I tattoo. He's a country singer. And his fan club, a couple of the ladies that run his fan club, flew here from Buffalo, New York to get tattooed by me because I tattooed him. I'm like, there is 10,000 tattoo artists across the country that are better than me. Why aren't you going to one of them? And they're like, yeah, but you tattooed him. And I'm like, that's just silly. I know that question's coming up because you asked me this before, what craziest tattoo I did, and I didn't have the answer until I just thought about it. This lady on the fan club, people would give her a hard time and said she always had her head up the artist's butt. So she brought me a picture of him bent over on stage, right?
Yeah.
So she had me put that on her leg, and above it, it said place and then the name here, pointing to his butt. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yikes.
You did that one?
I did. And I called him. I said, dude, you told me they were coming, but you could have warned me. They were a blast. I mean, it was one of the funnest times I've ever had. And then there's sad times too. I had a lady that came in for her last tattoo. That was rough. She had been diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't even know she passed away until like 2 months later, but that was her last tattoo. And she told me when she came, it was her last tattoo. We got pictures. I've got them all. She said, we need to get pictures. So I jumped on the chair and I said, your lap or mine? So she jumped up in my lap and we took pictures. It was a fun time. She was an amazing woman.
That's awesome to get an impact on someone's life like that.
Mm-hmm.
We get to do that all the time. People don't realize how much we can help. They say that tattooing is therapy. I don't feel that way because I hate getting tattooed. I think it hurts, but I'm a big baby. 16-year-old girls handle tattoos better than I do. But yeah, we get to help a lot of people, man, whether it's covering something up or doing a memorial for them, for a loved one. We really can make a difference,
This next question is one of my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's a piece of wisdom that's helped guide you that you like to share with other people? It could be wisdom or a quote that you like.
God doesn't put anything in front of us we can't handle. I believe that wholeheartedly. Sometimes I wish he just didn't trust me so much.
There you go.
The way that this business has changed me, I still love the people as much as I ever did, but trust no one. There's a lot of people out there that are going to love you to your face and hate you to your back. I'm real big on that one these days, which is kind of negative. I know, bummer,
sure.
But
it's real though.
It is real.
Change.
It is real.
It's a real part of the shit.
It is real. I have very few people in my life that I fully trust. I've been so blessed with the people that I've met here. Like one of my best friends, Rich, I met him when I had a guy that had worked here that had kind of messed up a tattoo on him and I had to fix it. We became family. And that's one of the things about this business I love so much is the people we meet. We're not hairdressers, and no fun to them because some of them do spend time with them. But for us, we spend hours with people. So we talk about a lot of things. People get to know me. I get to know them. We form relationships with them. It's really an awesome business. If not for the industry itself, this business is amazing.
What does real change mean to you? Like, what's it look like to make a real change?
Nowadays, just loving. There's so much hate and so much division across our community. This community, every community is divided right now. I don't know what brought it on. I think it might have been the politics. I don't know. But there's so much division. I think that in order to make a real change, we have to all learn to start respecting and loving each other.
Can you love someone fully if you don't have the capabilities of trusting them?
Yes. Oh, I love plenty of people I don't trust.
Okay.
Absolutely. Our hearts are made to love. That's what God intended for us to do, is to love. He didn't intend for us to hate. Unfortunately, he gave us free will, and that's what we can do. We make that choice. I tell my kids that life is like a light switch. You get up in the morning, you can flip that switch. I call it the asshole switch. You can say, I'm going to be an asshole today, and you wake up in a bad mood. You can flip that switch and be like, no, I'm going to do good today. I'm going to be great. I'm going to love everybody. I believe that we all have it in us to do that. It's just harder for a lot of folks to find it, to find that strength to be able to do that. I overcome a lot of things in my life when I realized that I can flip that switch and I can not be that guy. It's really about choices. We all make choices. Like Rocky said, it's not about how hard you get hit. It's about getting up.
You can't change what happens to you, but you can change how you react to it.
Absolutely. 100%. You cannot. I don't regret anything I've done. I regret that I hurt people. I regret if I physically hurt someone or if I emotionally hurt them. I regret that. But I don't regret my life. I wouldn't change it. Just because you regret something doesn't mean you want to change it. Because those things made me a better person. They made me realize the things I don't want to do. They made me realize the things I don't want to repeat. It's not what you get, it's what you give. Tesla song. Yeah. That's my Tesla song on my arm. Yeah. Nice. That's my life motto.
There's plenty of times in my life when I didn't want what was happening to be happening. Mm-hmm. And then after it passed, I look back and I'm like, I hated that, but I wouldn't change it. I am who I am now because of that.
Necessary.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The things I went through, it was something that a lot of people can't come back from. But I believe that we all have it in us to overcome. Wilmington is a perfect example of that. My God. And look what we've overcame in this community. When I was running for council, I used to say, we need to stop relying on a monster company to support the whole town. We need to look at Sydney, Ohio, look at other places that have a variety. Why not bring in a lot of smaller industrial so that if this plant closes, we've got 6 more.
Do you think that might happen with Amazon too?
I think that goes back to what's on my back. Trust no one. Okay. We can't just sit around and wait and hope. We need to take action and do. Like downtown, Wilmington is known, I don't care if you put this in there or not, it's known for not being very mom and pop friendly to our businesses. I feel like that's been changing recently, and that's a great thing. Now you see downtown looking beautiful. Shout out to Wiederhold.
Yeah, I was going to say, who was it that painted that?
Yeah, Tim. Yeah, he's amazing. You have all this color downtown that they would never let you do before. And I think it's great. But change is what Wilmington needs. And in order to make the change, you have to be open-minded and you have to see the bigger picture. If we rely on a monster company and that monster company goes out, the same thing that happened when DHL left is going to happen again.
That's what I've been thinking about.
And it's something to think about. Yeah. It should always think about that. When you listen, if you put all your eggs in one basket and you drop that basket, you break all your eggs. You go up to Sydney, you've got Hydro Aluminum, you've got Ross Aluminum, you've got Freshway Foods, you've got Gilardi's, which is something else now, I think Conagra or something, but you've got all these different, Stolly's, Copeland, all these different places. And that's another thing. When you have all that, you have larger companies wanting to build closer to it because that's where the pool of employees are, because people come. When you have businesses that'll support people, people come to that area. Mm-hmm. You go 5 to 10 miles outside of Sydney, and they built a monster plant for Honda. And it's been there for over 20 years. It's still going. It's probably over 30 years now.
To be fair, I think the port is trying to diversify businesses.
They've started putting little things in here and there. Yeah, I've seen that.
There's some big companies that, besides just Amazon. Amazon's probably maybe the biggest.
Why do we depend on the port? We have so much land around Wilmington that we could develop. They're turning into other things, especially closer to the central area here. Like David's Drive and all that. There's a lot of potential in Wilmington. And there's a lot of people here that want to work. There's a lot that don't, but there's a lot to do.
I think of, like, speaking of, you have a choice to flip a switch every morning, what DHL like did to the community as far as deflating the air in people's lungs. Maybe we believe that we're a community of empowered individuals.
100%.
And I think we're able to succeed as a Real Change Wilmington because we believe that.
Yeah.
But there's so many people who, like, you can see don't believe that. Like they believe they're like a victim of DHL, they're a victim of whatever circumstances. But like, we're able to succeed because we believe.
Let's say Amazon decided to pull out. If that happened again, it's going to hit everybody. And it's going to be the same thing. We'll bounce back quicker this time. We will. That's what Wilmington does.
Yeah.
They bounce back quicker. You learn from your mistakes. And I think Wilmington has probably learned from that one because everything I've seen recently, it's gotten better and better and better and better. Some things, like the whole downtown thing, that's more enticing. You want to walk downtown, you got a bunch of buildings that are like gray and brown and beige and, it's colorful. Now we've got other places that are coming in, Old Town Tavern, we got that building. Look at it. They bring a lot of people in.
Any other like closing thoughts that you want to leave people with about your story, about your business? I
was nothing. I was a criminal. I was a bad guy, and I'm here. I got past it. I overcame it. Anybody can. It's just a matter of what they want to. That's it. Everything is a choice. We can choose to wake up and be a jerk, or we can choose to wake up and not. It might take us a little while to come up with that. I know sometimes in the day I have to work on being nice because you can ask these guys here, I can be kind of a jerk sometimes, but I think that we all have that choice. Life is a choice, and if you want to succeed and do better, you just have to consciously make that choice and follow through. By the grace of God and my friends and the people that have helped me, I've overcame. There's not a day goes by that I would change, and there's not a day go by where I dwell on how bad it was. I just make today better.
Thanks for being on our podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Chris Walls at For the Love of Ink Tattoos and Body Piercings. If you have more questions for him, feel free to reach out directly or stop in the shop. If he'll talk to us two dorks, he will certainly talk to you as well. After all, we are a community of empowered individuals. So, Tiara, if people want to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington, how would they do that?
You can contact us on our website at realchangewilmington.com, visit our Facebook and Instagram pages, or grab a free copy of our local newspapers at Kroger, Sam's Meat, and Fiesta Veracruz. We also currently send our newspaper direct mail to over 2,500 Wilmington residents, so if you want to help us cover our printing costs and advertise your local business, event, or job posting, please email us at advertise@realchangewilmington.com.
Very cool. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm your co-host, Tiara Harris.
Keep it real, Wilmington.